Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode number 135 of Lead Up for Women, Speak Up to Lead Up. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and you might hear like, wow, she sounds a little somber today. Why is that? And my voice is also a little bit different. I came down with a virus last week, and no, it was not COVID, because I get that question every single day, all day, when someone asks me when I was sick. So I wonder, what did the world do before COVID? I'm just going to ask that question because as I was going to clinics and having nurses treating me in my house, one of the big questions, they were like, you need to get tested for COVID. I've already had COVID. I had it back in December of 2019 or 2020, sorry. And so I tested negative, and then as nurses were still coming in to treat my fevers and, vomiting and those types of things and giving me IVs. I asked them, well, what do you think I should do? What do I have? And they just looked at me and they're like, well, it'd be a lot easier if you had COVID because we know how to treat it. So it's just, I wondered myself, how much has this pandemic affected people? And I'm excited to have an expert here today, and we can talk a little bit about mental health and a few of those. But before I get to that, I first want to thank our sponsors today, Hey Taxi. They've sponsored this episode, and Hey Taxi empowers and educates female entrepreneurs who are growing their business online. Hey Taxi's Empowered CEO membership is for you if you are a female entrepreneur who is ready and fully committed in taking action to run a successful, profitable business and ready to scale quickly. You need strategic support from experienced business peers who can partner to develop action plans and provide access to focused business trainings to go-to tools covering all areas of running business online, including your finance, taxes, sales, marketing, mindset, etc., and direct access to vetted business CPA, live interactive trainings on go-to business resources, virtual networking with your peers, potential customers and collaborators, registration to 3 signature business and tax masterclasses, training on leveraging affiliate programs for additional business income, and one-on-one coaching sessions with the founders, plus a community of like-minded female entrepreneurs to support you in running and scaling a profitable legacy business. Take the Hey Taxi Swiss cheese survey today to identify your gaps and gold stars in your current business strategy and structure. You can go to www.surveymonkey.com/Swiss cheese survey, and we'll have that link for you below. So let's go ahead and get to our expert, as we talked about today, Dr. Blythe Cleverly. Now, she is a brain and behavior strategist, registered orthomolecular and brain health practitioner with a PhD in holistic health. She's been in private practice, has engaged in public speaking since 2009, and served as lead instructor at an alternative medicine college. She received supplemental training at such revered institution as the Amen Clinics and Harvard University. She has presented to provincial health councils and medical clinics, as well as having been featured in newspapers, podcasts, and YouTube channels. And she's residing in BC, Canada. Welcome, Dr. Blythe Cleverly.
Thank you, Colleen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before the show, we were talking a little bit about our brain and our health, and how, mental health has changed since the pandemic. And I would love to dive into that a little bit deeper with you, because I felt some of that. A friend of mine just had a husband who had a heart attack. Had a seizure, wound up going into the hospital. He was negative for COVID a week before going in. All of a sudden, then they tested him and said he was quote unquote positive, treated him for that. But he was there for alcoholism, actually. That was why he had the seizure. It's so interesting to me how the world has changed so much since the pandemic. And, I want us to all be what we've talked about, right? Being that extraordinary person, but with so much going on in the world, how do we get there? Let's talk a little bit about the mental health piece, if you don't mind.
Sure. A lot of what you're mentioning there is about how the world has gained a singular focus. Mm-hmm. And everybody's thoughts have come into one. sort of negative event. And with that, everything else kind of goes out the window. There's lack of balance, and there's lack of mental health now, where that's deteriorating to such a point that everybody is accepting what they call this new normal. And it is not normal, and it is not good. But the mass population, it's almost like being under a spell, in trance, where they are going through the motions of their life, and they think they're going in one place, but they have no idea really where they're going, and it's being dictated by a lot of other people, right? So the fact that somebody like you can say, well, I've already had this disease, and nobody is shocked that you have survived it because the survival rate is so high, tells us that there's something wrong, and that this has changed the entire globe. And people who are reasoning realize this, and they're wondering, why is this happening? How can this be happening? The massive amount of people are followers of it, but there are a number of people who question, and these types of people are what I call the extraordinary people. They tend to question most things. They're analytical. It's just who they are. It's their nature. And in this case, it works to their advantage, because they don't give in to the hype or the mass media, which is there designed, and always has been designed, to instill fear in us. So those that question it will see that there's a bigger picture of something that must be happening here. And that is what will help to save their mental health, if they can learn how to control it.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger picture, because if you are allowing your TV to be on, let's say, and you're allowing news to be pumped into your home, I know I'm in my office today. I have a TV installed right here to my left on the wall, and I installed it last December at Christmas, when I redid my office, and I've never turned it on. In fact, I turned it on when I first plugged it in, but since then I've never turned it on or listened to the news. And my husband and I, we don't listen to any news, like regular TV. We just don't, have any regular channels pumped in our home. So we're not getting the news through that. And I guess my question is, what is that doing to the mental health of society today, with what you said, with social media that we're scrolling through on our phones, the news that we're hearing? How is that?
Well, in a nutshell, it's brainwashing them, in a nutshell. Now, I'm studied in brain and behavior, and especially with a lean towards cultism, and also a historian. So when you put all of these things together, you realize there's something massive that's happening, and I don't think it's new. I think this has been always the case when it came to the media. The news is not accurate. News is not news. It's the news they want you to know. It's stories. The news is storytelling, and it is not happy storytelling. And so turn it off. Because if there's something in the world you desperately need to know, don't worry, your neighbor is going to tell you. So it's better to preserve your own mental health and don't listen to what the media is presenting. And I can tell you that firsthand, in that I've been places and seen things that are happening, such as protest rallies for freedoms of protecting Charter of Rights here in Canada, where the media will come in and say that the people are obstructing the way of hospital workers, and they're being terrible people. And I have been an eyewitness to what has happened, because that is how you do your research. You actually show up and don't listen to what everybody else is saying about it. You show up and you see with your own two eyes what's happening. And I have witnessed the media actually defaming and outrightly lying about the things that are happening, to put their spin on things, so that one group appears to be wrong and the other group appears to be right. And any time in history that we end up with we versus they, and a segregation of the population, then it doesn't end well.
No.
A divided country is not a strong foundation for anything.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Blythe, because from the beginning, building Lead Up for Women and having this movement is to unite people, is to bring female entrepreneurs together, for them to lift each other, to cheer each other on, to help each other with their success of their companies, to be able to be seen and be heard and be visible. And I want my listeners to ask themselves the question today: are you being seen? Are you being heard? Are you using your voice? Are you speaking up? Just as Blythe had said when she went to a protest to see what was really happening versus what was reported on the news. So if we're only believing what we see in social media or on TikTok, or and we're not really stepping out into the community to get involved in areas that we're passionate about, don't expect a change to happen. You can't sit back. We need to lead. We need to lead that change. And one of the best ways to lead change is to use your voice, and be passionate about what it is that you believe in. And that goes all the way down to as small as using your voice in your family or your community, in your faith, with your friends and family, and using your voice for what you believe in, to be extraordinary in your own life, for you to speak up in your business. That's what we talk a lot about in your businesses. You are the extra sauce, everything that your experiences, your knowledge, your skill sets, you're the extra sauce. So let's talk about some of the clients you've worked with that are extraordinary. What is the things that are really setting those people apart from what you call the ones that are followers or fall victim? I'll use that word, to what's happening around them versus feeling like they have the power to change.
Mm. Well, a lot of it has to do with understanding that they have the right to free thought and that they're not bad people for questioning. In fact, throughout history, people have needed to question, and if everybody did question,
Mhm.
then our history would look a lot better than what it does. So to be able to say, I need to be a free thinker and analyze what's happening today and put it up against what I know to be truth,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. Right. So, and you're right, people can do that in many different ways. Go support, when people are being vocal about it, go support that. Go check it out, see what's actually happening. I've done a series of videos now that's, a little bit ballsier, if you will. But Remembrance Day is coming up, and there's no way that I can, in good conscience, wear a poppy and remain silent about the freedoms that these brave men and women have fought for, than to just simply relinquish them. So I actually, and last year I began that with simply telling stories of my own family in warfare that a lot of veterans don't share because they're painful. But I think this is what we need to remember, because people have forgotten what it is they're supposed to be remembering. And we say lest we forget, but I'm afraid it's almost too late, because people have forgotten. They don't know what sacrifice looks like. So for all the people who actually have stories of their families like that are extraordinary, to share them, because people need to remember what it looks like when you're about to lose your freedoms, because we're right there again and people aren't recognizing it. So it's a pivotal point in history, and it does take courage to stand out and say, hey, I support my country. I don't support my government, but I support
Yeah.
my country. And that's a very big different thing. People need to understand the difference between that. The government's simply a bunch of people hired to run the country.
Right.
But I've got a good country, and our country is not the same. Colleen, your country's good too. And I can't really comment on your government, but I can comment on mine. But I think everybody in the world is going through the same thing, and is actually challenging their governments to govern them in an ethical
Yeah.
and positive way, right? So with these people that I talk about as being extraordinary, I wouldn't necessarily say that absolutely all of them have the same opinions about things, but they
No.
do have some things in common. And this is what I call my ideal client. And these are only the people I work with. I only work with this type of person. So you're right when you said they're not in victim mentality. They go away from that and they think for themselves. And in fact, they can't help but think. It is who they are. If they could stop it, they probably would, but they can't because their mind is always going.
Yes. I know that thought. It's exactly, I wake up feeling that way. I go to bed feeling that way, and I feel that way all day.
And, it can feel like a curse. It can be a blessing and a curse. And I say it's probably your best asset. You need to learn how to use that to your advantage and not let it bring you down. So when you're having a lot of conversation with yourself in your head, the wheels are turning. We call that overthinking. I actually prefer now to term it as extra deep thinking, where you have a lot of dialogue within yourself about anything and everything. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The world needs more thinkers.
Mm-hmm. I'm alluding to what you were talking about earlier. I was just listening to a Ronald Reagan speech the other day, and he said, "We, the people, are the drivers. Your government is the car." So remembering that the people, that we weren't founded on a government. I just want to remind everybody that we were founded by people, and we live, for me, in America, which is where I live, for a reason. And today is November 10th, and I know that this podcast will come out at a later date. But tomorrow we celebrate Veterans Day in the United States. And I'm leading a veterans breakfast in my community, and I'm the MC, and I'll be leading the event. And I've seen in my own family the sacrifices that my daughters have had to make and the family have had to make because of our son-in-laws who have served in the military. And I don't want that to all be for nothing. All the sacrifices and all the time and time away from your children and time away from your spouses. And like you said, veterans don't talk about their experiences or their stories very often because they're extremely painful, because they've been asked to do things that some of us couldn't fathom doing or even surviving through, right? And it was all to protect our country and our liberties and our freedoms. And I don't take that lightly. And I do speak up about, I love my country, the United States of America, and what it stands for, and the people that are within the country. And I don't support the government. I don't support what's currently happening in the United States. And that's my opinion. Other people have their opinions, and I don't let it divide me from my friends that have a different opinion, because I know it's, just a different opinion. But if you are an overthinker, if you are a thinker, spending time alone with your thoughts and writing them down and allowing yourself to really think out processes, for me, is very helpful to quiet some of that. If I don't give it the attention it deserves, to sit quietly and process those thoughts, it doesn't stop ever. What are some suggestions that you have, Blythe, for someone that might find themselves fearful to speak up, or they're overthinking things, or they are the thinkers, right? They want to be extraordinary. They don't want to be a victim to what is happening. What are some suggestions that you're working with your clients on, of things that they can do?
Well, first off, I'll commend you, Colleen, for doing that for the veterans and hosting that. I think that's beautiful and wonderful. And I think more people need to do that and acknowledge the service that people are making in both of our countries, right? Which often have fought together in the wars as well. But for the overthinker, right? I call them the extra deep, extra thinking person, to acknowledge who they are, to understand that they're not alone. There are so many of us that feel like we're the only ones that have so much happening in our heads, and we're not. We are not alone. I'm actually writing a book that is called Swimming in the Deep End. And it's for those that are deep thinking, deep feeling people. It's a life preserving guide for them who are living in a shallow world, and that it can feel very lonely. Okay? So the first part of it, it's kind of understanding that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are part of you, but you're not actually your thoughts. And the proof of that is that you don't even believe everything you think. So understanding that you are in control actually of those thoughts. You just need a little bit of help, a little bit of maintenance. And I stumbled upon this when I was about 15 years old as a chronic overthinker, with very few answers to my questions. People who are overthinkers, they're always looking for answers and they need them, including the answers to the bigger questions, because they think ahead. Well, what is all this for? Right? They see the bigger picture. When I was about 15 and I was going crazy in my head with all of these thoughts, and there didn't appear to be any hope. And I had come across a quote somewhere and I liked it. And I don't remember what the original quote was, but I have changed it. And in my mind, I repeated it over and over again. And it was that my mind is a dangerous neighborhood and I dare not walk it alone. And when I read something to that effect, it just clicked for me that, yeah, my mind is like a neighborhood and it's scary and I need help in here. And then I realized, wait a minute, if my mind is a neighborhood, then I must be the mayor. And my mind is being vandalized by these thoughts over and over again. And so what would I do if I owned a town and it was being chronically vandalized? I'd put up streetlights. So then I would turn a light on and everything that was happening in my brain, and I would question each vandal that I ran into if they belong there, if they should stay, right? Is what you're saying true? And is what you're saying helpful? This is what I call the yes test. You ask yourself those two questions. Is it true, this thought? I mean, verifiably true. I don't mean, oh, I'm worried it's true. I mean, is it verifiably true? And then whether it's true or not, is it helpful? Helpful being, is it leading you in a way that's bringing positive things into your life, bringing you where you want to go? And if it doesn't answer those two questions with a yes, it gets thrown out of town. It's not allowed back in. So I'm the mayor. I make the rules of the town. And I realized, you know what? This town, it's not a bad town. It just needed maintenance. And that's the way it is for anybody who's an overthinker. There's ways, there's skills, strategies, and tools, just like anything else you can learn it. You want to learn to play the piano, you want to learn another language, you want to learn how to cook, great. You just apply yourself to it. It's the same thing. You can control your mind the same way as you learn any other skill. You're not stuck with the brain you have physically. So I can tell you that as well. If you have a brain injury, if you have things that are happening in your brain, you can change your brain. And you're not stuck with the mind you have. So these are two different things. The brain you can touch, the mind you can't, and they work together. So you can change both of these things. And then there's the emotional component, because the extraordinary person thinks extra deeply, also feels extra deeply. So this is kind of the manual that we were supposed to be born with. You know, when we came out, it should have plopped out after us. And then we would have known what to do with this thing called a brain, a mind, a heart. And what do we do with the emotions that we have? Because the state of the world right now is inspiring a whole lot of emotion. And even before that, you know what? There were things that happened. It was not a utopia we lived in before COVID. And if we continue to allow the powers that be to continue on, it's certainly not going to be a utopia after. So we're going to need to learn how to deal with ourselves. And with it, when it comes to emotions, we were taught very, very badly. We were taught badly. And that's not because our parents and our teachers and clergymen or whatever didn't care. It's because they didn't know.
Yeah.
But when we know better, we do better. And so what I've done is I've put together 5 steps of what we are meant to do when we feel emotions, because there's a purpose for them. We don't want to just turn them off. These are all skill sets. They can easily be learned. They're strategies. They can easily be learned to help us to have a much happier, productive life. Because when you don't have these skills and you overthink and you overfeel, you're going to be susceptible to all kinds of things, like lack of healthy relationships, Addictions, another huge one is addictions, because you want to escape your thoughts, you want to escape how you're feeling. And there are tools and ways to take back control of your life, your mind, your heart, your brain.
I love that. Are those 5 steps that you have available on your website, Blythe?
I don't have them available on my website, but I will be starting to talk about some of these in videos.
Okay.
It's a process that I take people through.
Okay.
Very easily to understand. If I were to recap them very quickly, they sound very simple, and indeed they are, but understanding needs to happen with each of them.
Okay. Well, we will have all the links below for anyone who's watching this video, or for anyone who is listening on the podcast. We'll have them at your fingertips so you can click on those links. So, Blythe, talk to me a little bit about who the ideal client is that you're working with, and why would someone want to reach out to you to get in contact with you to learn how they, why would they? Why would a person want to reach out to you? Who would that ideal person be right now, today?
In a nutshell, that would be somebody who wants to take their power back. They want to be in control of their life, how they're feeling and thinking. They don't want to be a victim to whatever's happening around them. They actually want to move forward in life and do the work to get there. It's not a tremendous amount of work, but it does take some self-discipline to decide you're going to control your life and direct it in a certain way. So these are empowered people. They're usually highly intelligent people. They are the thinker. They do feel deeply. I will find that in general, for the women, they're kind of like a genie in the bottle. They've been doing for everybody else, and they've been trying to earn their worth. They're tired of repeat patterns in relationships. They want to know why they're doing things. For other people, I see a lot of people who have an engineering mind. They are not necessarily engineers, but they think like them. They're always analyzing and connecting the dots. And they want to understand how to have the edge and better control themselves and have balance from their personal and professional lives to get along with other people. Some of these people are socially inept because they live so much in their minds.
Yeah.
A number of them are addicts who are in recovery, and they do not want to relapse. And beyond, rehab centers, there's not a lot of support beyond that, and Al-Anon meetings and AA, various things. But to actually understand why they started drinking in the first place, how they can use their brain and their mind to make sure that that is not their reality in the future. I've had a tremendous amount of success in dealing with people in these situations where they don't relapse. And a number of my clients, have now years behind them of sobriety and being clean from either alcohol or drugs or other addictions.
Wonderful. Well, I can tell you that Blythe definitely knows what she's talking about. She's got quite the history of education, and has helped hundreds of clients to be able to become that, that empowered, extraordinary person. So if you fall into the bucket of anything that she was talking about, her contact information will be below. Please be sure to reach out to her, to have a consultation with her, to get to know her better, and see how you can get your life back on track. Because in this world right now, we need your voice, and you need to speak up to lead up. That's where we are. So Dr. Blythe Cleverly, thank you so much for being our expert today and being with us. And again, give us a couple websites or a few places that you find that you connect with people the best.
In general, my website is drcleverly.com, and my business is called Fork in the Road, because that's when people come to see me. And so you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn, either under Dr. Cleverly or under Fork in the Road, services or strategies. And I do post things there that you might find of value. So you can find me in those few places, especially. And I'm very happy to connect with you. You can email me directly. It's probably the quickest way to get to me, blythecleverly@gmail.com. And I'd be very happy to talk with you. And thank you so much today, Colleen. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, doctor. And we will have all that contact information below. So for now, I just want to remind all of you that you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that will ever be. So how you pioneer from now to the future to the end of your day is up to you. So don't live in regret. Use your voice, stand in your power, be the empowered female that you know you can be. And we look forward to speaking with you again next week as we inspire you with another guest. So thank you so much. And ladies, until next week, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now, everyone.